Welcome back to the Chasing Happiness podcast, an honest podcast about finding happiness, what it really means, and the process of getting there. My name is Crystal, and today I'm joined by a wonderful lady who we have already been chatting prior to recording. Today I'm joined by Tammy Johnston. She is a hold your hand and kick your ass business coach, which you know I love if you're listening to this podcast. She is on a mission to build a better world by helping to build better entrepreneurs, and we're going to talk all about that. But Tammy, before we get into that, for people who are listening to this podcast and maybe don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, my clients are basically the ones that name me the hold your hand and kick your ass business coach because I work slightly different than most business coaches. And I specialize in working with solopreneurs as early in their journey as possible, like idea stage to up to 2 years in business.
Awesome.
Because that's where there's the most pain and having to learn things on your own. And unfortunately, there's so many wonderful people that start great businesses with wonderful products and services, but very few of them, like it's a dismal amount, survive the first 2 years.
Right.
And it's not because they're not busting their butt. It's not because they don't have good products or service. That
Sure.
is very, very rarely is that the issue. The issue is they're lacking the basic foundational skills that they need to build a business around it. There's 8 things that every single business, it doesn't matter what industry, what product, what service, what it is. There's the 8 things that everybody needs to know: mindset, habits, marketing, systems, advisory team, financials, cash flow, and profit. You've got those, you understand those. The chances of you surviving go way up, and the chances of you thriving are exponential. If you are missing any of those pieces, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot harder, and you're probably not going to make it. And that breaks my heart when I see these people that are putting their lives and their families and their life savings and everything into these businesses, and they're just not making it because they have to go through and try and figure everything out on their own. And I've been in business myself, running my own company and working with solopreneurs for over 20 years now. And I'm going, if I could go back and talk to me 1 year before I started, oh my God, life would have been so much better. And I went into business in a much better position than the vast majority of people because I'm a dork. And I've been studying money, business, and success since I was 7 years old. But there was still so much stuff that I had to learn the hard, painful, embarrassing, frustrating, and expensive way. And I'm going, I love learning from mistakes. I prefer to learn from other people's. So
Sure.
I help people not screw up the way I've done it, the way I've seen so many other people do. Make new mistakes, okay?
Right. I love this. I love this because that's part of the reason that I have this podcast, right? Is so we can talk to other people about life and learn from what they have gone through. Maybe not necessarily so we don't have to go through it, but if we go through it, how we can handle it in the best way possible because we have the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So I love that this is what you do, especially because as a solopreneur, I can speak to some experience of just how difficult it is. You know, you start something regardless of what it is, and you have this passion and this drive, and you know you can impact the world. And it's so difficult, especially to do it alone. You know, when you have a business partner or you have somebody there with you, you at least have somebody kind of going through the struggle that you can talk to about.
Yeah. But sometimes that makes it worse.
Sure. There's that too.
I've been through so many, like all of it, like everything has pros and cons. And just because, like I said, you're learning and you're hearing other stories doesn't mean you're not going to go through it. But I'm all about, can we avoid the problems? If we come to the problems, how can we get through them faster, easier, with less pain and grief? Because no matter how wonderful you are, you're still going to deal with crap hitting the fan.
Right.
But how do you better deal with it? Is it an inconvenience where you have to go and clean up and stuff afterwards? Or is it fatal?
It's huge, huge. And I love that you're helping people with this because I think, especially now, given the last couple of years that we've lived through, there are so many people who have decided, you know what? I am no longer going to work for someone else. I want to start my own business. I want to be in control of my own destiny. I know I can change the world in some way. This is how I want to do it, or whatever it happens to be. And so there's a ton of people. I think they're calling it in the business world right now, like the mass exodus or something, because there's a ton of
another one they're saying they're calling it is the Great Resignation.
Yes.
And I'm in Alberta, so I've been seeing that for a few years because everything's oil and gas. And right now we're getting our butt kicked. And there's a lot of people, like I've had quite a few clients that are like engineers and stuff that are used to working downtown, and they got pink slipped and they're going, I don't want to go back. And even though they're getting headhunted and stuff now because things are coming up and things, they're going, I'm tired of all that. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want somebody else dictating what hours I'm working and when can I have vacation, and I want to have the freedom and be able to set up my life so that it works instead of I'm always jumping for this Yahoo.
Yes. And there are so many people making that decision. And it's so exciting for me as someone who has been in business for a little while to see, regardless of what it is, whether it's somebody getting creative and trying to sell whatever they make, or whether it's someone, creating a new business to help other businesses or whatever it happens to be. It's like, this just feels like such an empowering moment for people. Yep. And I love that you're helping, because I am so worried about all of these people. Because we know the stats. As a business person, the stats, the success rate, and it's abysmal realistically when you look at the numbers.
It doesn't need to be. Honest to God, it doesn't need to be. And that's why I do what I do. A lot of your business coaches, they want you after the 2 years. They want you after you start. And they're wonderful. I'm like a really good family doctor. I am not an ologist. We go over the basics. We get you on all that stuff. We set you up with the habits and the mind, like all of this stuff. And then when you get to a point where you need more specialized knowledge and help and support, well, then you go find them. But I've also been finding so many people that have just started out and they know that they need help. And I see all the ads on social media because I'm their demographic. So they're targeting me all the time. And they're going, oh, well, pay me $5,000 for this Facebook ads course. And I'm sure the course is wonderful, but if you've got somebody that's just starting out, that's not what they need.
Right.
And then, oh, well, your mindset. Yes, it's important. Pay me $10,000 and I'll help you with that. Well, your mindset can be wonderful, but if you haven't got a clue on how to set up a systems, marketing, or financials, what was the freaking point?
Right.
So they're going through and they're working so hard and they're trying, like you said, they're not lazy. And they're grasping at straws. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with those business coaches or their courses, but I'm going, they're not ready for it yet. It's like you've got a toddler that's learning to walk and you're going, okay, well, we need to hook you up with Usain Bolt's running coach. No, we're not there yet. Baby steps.
Yes. And that's such an important thing, not just in the business world, just in life in general, right? We get so caught up in this. I have to make big leaps and big progress, and I have to have this huge thing every day, but we can't get there without those baby steps because we weren't learn the lessons and be able
that mentality. And it's huge in North America. And I just finished doing a bit of a marketing course with a very big name that I paid a little bit of money for. And I knew it was going to be a big pitch at the end for the rest of his courses and stuff. And I know he's good and I know he's successful, but I'm going through and there's about 1,500 people in the group. I paid for the VIP and I'm going, a lot of these people don't need him yet. They need somebody like me, but I'm going, they're dropping like thousands and thousands of dollars. Right. Yes, he's providing great stuff, but are they ever going to watch the videos or do any of this stuff? Everybody's looking for they're trying to go, how can I jump over the Grand Canyon? You don't, you crash if you do it that way. Right. But you take your fat, pasty white ass like I do, and you start at the one rim and you walk down slowly and painfully with the sunscreen and the water and the hat and all of this stuff. And you make it down to the river and then you walk up the other side. Those are the people that do it. But if you're trying to like do the evil Knievel thing, the only thing you're going to do is die.
Crash and burn. Yes, absolutely. And I think you're right. Here, especially in North America, we have our heads so wrapped up in this idea of quick, easy in some ways. If it's not fast and it's not instant results, then it's not worth doing. And we end up in this place where we basically torture ourselves because there's no way to succeed if that's how you're tackling life.
Instant doesn't exist. But we hear about them in the media because 1 out of like 10 million people might be able to do it. And then you'll find out, if you actually start looking in the background, that there's all these other things that help them. Or you hear about these overnight successes. Overnight success is like a short one is 10 freaking years.
Right.
The people like, what is the stuff that you did day in, day out? What were the habits? What were the things that you learned? What were all the little mistakes, medium mistakes, and big mistakes that you made and learned from to keep going? How did you get yourself set up? But everybody's looking for the lottery mentality, and then they're wondering why it doesn't freaking work. And why they're miserable.
Right. And that's the thing, right? We get stuck in this misery. It's really self-induced in a lot of ways because we think it should be, because nobody is looking at that back end. Nobody gets anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Beyonce. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Brad Pitt. Like, it does not matter. Even if people are looking at these people and saying, hey, they had this one hit and it made them an overnight success. You look back at their history, and since they were kids, they were studying, they were practicing, they were trying.
They were doing the 6th grade talent show, and I love the before they were stars, and you're seeing like the doofy pictures of like braces and pimples, and they did horrible commercials that they had to go through and do it. They didn't wake up and ta-da! Like, that doesn't happen.
Exactly. Oh, I love this conversation. I do want to touch on something though, because before we started recording this podcast, so for people listening, we are recording at the beginning of January. The episode will not air for a few weeks, but you were talking to me about something that you're going to launch soon. And by the time this airs, it should be launched. So do you want to actually tell people what it is so that we can sort of give them a heads up?
Well, we can give them a heads up. So I'm starting my second podcast. And it's one I've been percolating on and putting together for a few years. And now we're getting to the point, because I think it's really, really needed. It's called Positive Shit Disturbers. And it's people in business. It's people in nonprofits, charities, environmental, all sorts of stuff that are positively starring the shit and making the world a better place. Because we hear so much bad stuff in the news. And over Christmas and New Year's, just like most people in the world, I watch Don't Look Up. It's freaking depressing because it's not satire. It's a goddamn documentary. But I also love watching the ones where there's so many good things going on, and there's businesses coming in that are actually properly solving a need and treating their employees properly. And thinking about environmental ones, I've been watching a lot of like marine shows and things like that. And they're going, here's what this reef looked like 15 years ago. And then now it's been protected, and now we can't have the fishing nets coming through and like dragging off the bottom and all of this stuff. And it's totally and completely come around. And now it's the most biodiverse it's been in like 40 years. Aww. And I'm going, that's freaking amazing.
Right.
We can fix this. But the things that are the positive stuff that's going on, the positive things that people are doing, the technological advancements, and some of the really cool stuff is not advancements. It's going back to the old ways of doing things. Like I was watching a show on a guy in India, I think it was, and his area was going through massive drought. So it was just getting worse and worse. And I don't know if he started reading about it or was talking to an elder or something, but anyways, he says back like 1,000 years ago, this is what we did with the land. And they basically, really cool. So that when the rain comes, instead of it just running off, it stays and it slowly goes through. And he started building this on his own.
Oh, wow.
And his community thought he was like a fucking idiot.
Sure.
And didn't pay any attention until the next rain came, and the rain stayed, and now everybody's doing it. Like there's so much cool stuff, and people just need to hear about it and get inspired, because we have wonderful, amazing, intelligent, creative people that need to find one another, need to know that they can do it. And let's start fixing this shit show. I want my daughter, and maybe eventually, if there's a miracle of immaculate conception, a grandchild eventually, to have a world worth living in.
Right. I love this. And I cannot wait for you to start the podcast. I will for everyone listening, because by the time this airs, you will have the podcast out there.
Or very soon. Like I said,
will,
it's coming. There's
I
a bit of
will
work,
post
but
it
yes.
in the show notes for everyone, as well as all of your personal information so people can follow you and work with you. But I love this concept because something we were talking about before we started recording is this, negativity that seems to be surrounding us, whether it's social media or the news or whatever it happens to be. But there are so many magical things happening in the world. There are so many magical people doing amazing things that we just never hear about. So the fact that you're going to start highlighting some of these people, you're going to be able to have some of these conversations, and we're all going to be able to learn from it, I think is magical because, as you said, there are some people, especially in other places around the world, who are doing things. And maybe it means, leaving technology and going back to old school things like you were just talking about. But those things are having such a huge impact on the world.
And it's not an either or thing. Like a lot of people, oh no, we have to basically go back to caveman days and get rid of all technology. No, like this is one of the things that I absolutely love. And I'm going, because I'm a princess. I'm a spoiled, pasty white girl, and I know this, and I like my creature comforts, but there are so many ways that we can change just how we do things, like simple things. Like I also love watching like the stuff on architecture and things like this. And there's stuff where we have our refrigerators and our ovens and stuff like that set up in our house. Well, a lot of people have, and this is how my house is too, because that's the way that it was built. And they're going, we can make a few minor changes to like refrigerators, for example, and we put them to the outside wall and we hook it up so that when it's cold, because I'm in Alberta right now, freezing my butt kiss off. It's minus 28 Celsius here. So rather than running electricity to be cooling the fridge, you could be pulling some of that cold air from the outside. And then in the summer, rather than that waste heat being put into the house, and then you need more air conditioning, put the waste heat outside.
That's so smart.
There's so many things that we can. It's not like, no, you have to give up your hair blower and all your electricity.
Right.
No, it's how do we do this, and different ways of generating electricity. Like solar panels have come down in price and they're easier to install and cheaper. And wind generation, like everybody thinks about the great big huge wind turbines and stuff. Well, I've seen ones that are actually more efficient. They don't go after the birds. Like I could almost wrap my arms around them. They weigh about 200 pounds. You put them on the top of your roof, and like a 3-kilometer-an-hour wind is enough to power a small house.
Oh my gosh.
Like there's so many awesome things. And then going, these can be businesses and people like said, doing solar installations and batteries.
Yes.
And I'm also a TED junkie. I love TED Talks. And there's one I talk about quite regularly because the title is amazing. And it's called When Ideas Have Sex.
I like it.
Because you get people from like different backgrounds and different areas, and they start talking, and then it gets into like the ether, and it's like, oh, we can make this, and we can do this, and we just needed that one little piece here and this little piece over here, and now because they're together, they're creating new things. And business is not a bad thing. I am a capitalist to the core. The problem with our world is we don't have capitalism. We have freaking corporatism, and that is the antithesis of capitalism. Corporatism means I have bought my politicians to create the laws so that I get exactly what I want, and I do not have to participate in paying for any of it because my taxes keep going down. But my employees and the poor buggers that aren't the 0.1% are going to pay for it all. Where with capitalism, if you are providing a better product or service in an actual open and free market and not a free for all, like who would watch a football game or a hockey game or anything if there were no rules or lines or time? But within the rules, if you are doing a better job, you can get it out there. But try to compete with Amazon. There's law. They have set up laws in places where you can't compete with them. Legally, you can't compete with them. That's wrong. That is not capitalism. Where our change is going to come is not from the big slimy bastards. It's the small solopreneurs, the little companies. And that's where 68% of your jobs are anyways.
Right.
Whenever you hear about a big corp, what are you hearing? Horrible conditions, worker abuse.
Yeah.
We just had the tornadoes and stuff that were ripping through the States, and workers were going, we want to leave. The sirens are going, no, if you leave, you're fired. And now they're dead. That's wrong. That is wrong. And it's not necessary. Your growth is in the small companies, solopreneurs, and 10 employees and under. We need to support them. We need to trumpet them. We need to help them.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm a little passionate.
You are allowed to be passionate. And I love this because I am a huge advocate for support small business and local business. And, you know, my grandparents were very much entrepreneurs in a number of different businesses in a lot of ways. And so I very much love the idea of continuing to support those smaller places as much as you can. And, you know, since the pandemic started, especially, I really have focused on don't order it on Amazon, even if you have to pay twice as much for it and get it somewhere else. If you can get it locally, if you can get it through a distributor who is in your country, even that's 100 times better than having to order it from Amazon and it coming.
Well, I'll go through and look on Amazon and find the product, because a lot of the time they'll have, because they're just selling through Amazon because they pretty much have to.
Right.
And then you take that information and then you Google them directly. And a lot of the time you're not even paying more, because you'll get the same deal and the same shipping, because they're not having to give 30% or more to Jeff Amazon. Freaking Bezos.
Yes, absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why I love supporting small so much, because, you know, that money is going back into your community. It's supporting people from your community. It's being used to do charitable things in your community. And that's so, so, so important. So I love that you're passionate about it. I love that you're talking about it. And I could talk to you about these things all day. However, I do not want to keep you all day. So one thing I do at the end of the podcast, and people who are listening to this podcast, I got away from this because I moved across the country in the fall. I moved from Southern Ontario out to Halifax, Nova Scotia. And so I stopped asking questions at the end of the podcast. And a bunch of people reached out to me and said, we need the questions back because they're a catalyst for conversation.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Feel free to answer what you're comfortable with or not. You can absolutely pass on any question you want. But the first question is, what inspires you?
What inspires me? Oh, there's so many things. I'm huge on reading. I love spending time with small business owners, solopreneurs, idea people, which is kind of crazy because I'm a massive introvert. But I like spending time with people that are doing shit. Like if all you want to talk about is what's on TV, I'm sorry, I do not have time or mental capacity. I can't take enough IQ points out of my head to enjoy that conversation. So that's probably the biggest thing, is spending time with. And I love talk. It doesn't even matter what it is. If somebody is passionate about it and they're doing something, let's talk. That inspires me. That inspires me. That's, like I said, the TED Talks. I love reading. Business people, they get me excited.
I love that. I love that for so many reasons, because I love a lot of those same things, but also because I love anything that you can find that can be inspirational. Yeah. A lot of people think, oh, well, it has to be a specific person doing a specific thing, but like you can find inspiration in art. You can find inspiration in creativity. You can find inspiration everywhere, right? Yeah. So I love your answer. I think that's magical. The next question is, if you could go back in time and give yourself any piece of advice, what would it be?
How far back am I going?
That's anytime you want.
I'm pushing 50, dear. That's a big window. And I'm going, where am I going? That would be my first question. because the advice I would give is kind of time and place dependent.
Okay. So let's say if you could go back, let's make it simple. If you could go back 5 years and give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be? I
could go back 5 years. I would be learning a lot more about online marketing and stuff like that, because I'm very good, because like I've been running my own business for over 20 years and I've been on social media and stuff like this, but it's such a technical thing and it's constantly changing. And that's where you and I met. We met through a group in Facebook. Like there's so many wonderful things out there. But if I'm going back 5 years, I would have I'd say start paying more attention and learning more about, like I said, the social media marketing and stuff, because now that I'm going international with my business and wanting to help a lot more people. I've been building my back end and we're all set up to do it now. Now it's getting the message out there, and you have to do it through podcasting, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm not doing TikTok, but I'm seeing the TikTok all over. You have to be in social media. And I'd say, yeah, I would have had to start learning about it more because my learning curve is pretty steep on this one, which is a blessing and a curse.
Sure. And I think a lot of people can say that, right? You know, I am of the generation who grew up without the internet, and then we got the internet. And so I kind of have the best of both worlds in some ways, because I know what it's like not to have it. And I know I can survive without it.
You can have a conversation without having your phone in front of your face.
Exactly. But I also know how beneficial it's been to keep the world connected and to open up spaces and, you know, all of those things. So
it's all in how you use it.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I think, you know, a lot of people, especially from a business standpoint, feel overwhelmed because, okay, well, I have to be on TikTok and I have to be on Twitter and I have to be on Facebook and Instagram and all these other things. And what I say to my clients is pick one, start with just one.
Yeah. Yes, if you're trying to do 12, it ain't going to work.
Right. And it's overwhelming.
And what are you going to say? There's so many wonderful, fun stuff. Like I've been taking, I still need to finish it. I have to be honest. And it's not because there's anything wrong with the course, but I've had to back burner because I just got too much stuff on my plate.
Sure.
But an absolutely wonderful course on Instagram. And a lot of the stuff, the basic marketing stuff, I get, I totally get it. No problem. It's all the technical stuff is the stuff that I'm learning.
Right.
And I'm having to get into videos. And I'm an old pasty white woman. Video, it's like, oh dear God. I'm also one of the very small percentage, like the 13%, I would rather read. I don't want to see the videos. 87%, this is what the stats are, want to see videos. And I'm going, oh.
It's so true. You know, it's funny because I was looking at stats like that the other day, and I am in this place personally where I'm okay, sort of half and half. I think I'm like 50-50. Half the time I want a video, half the time I just want to read something or see the captioning or whatever. And so for me, I'm kind of in the middle, and I was talking to someone about it and they were like, oh no, 100%. Like all I want is videos. And if your video doesn't have music or whatever, then I don't want it. And I'm like, people are so specific now because there's so much of this data about what exactly they want. And what I said in this conversation was, I'm just going to keep doing what feels right to me because it's so overwhelming to do what everybody says you should be doing.
Well, yeah. And the thing is, if you're trying to please everyone, you're going to please no one.
Right.
Like somebody that I follow religiously, I love his stuff. Seth Godin. And he always talks about the smallest viable audience and work for them and be amazing. Because if you're trying to please the majority and the stats and stuff, you're just going to be like everyone else and you're going to accomplish squat.
Yes.
Smallest viable audience. So yes, I am doing the videos and stuff like that. I'm worrying about music and all this stuff. And also, as a constantly recovering perfectionist, I have to get over that because perfect doesn't exist. I have to put it out. I have to go, what worked, what didn't, what do I want to try next time, get better, and never look at my past videos again because, oh, cringe. But if we don't go through the cringe, we'll never get to great. You have to do your awful commercial to get to your Oscar.
Yes, that's so true. Oh, I love that. That's so true. Okay. So the next question is, who would you love to sit down and have a conversation with and why?
Well, that's another really, really big question. That is a tough one because there are so many subjects and things like that. I love business people. I keep thinking Betty White because she's just passed and she's been in the news, and Betty White is absolutely amazing. And she's made such great stands and stuff like what I'm seeing on Facebook. And I've seen it before, but it's huge now about how when she had her variety show and it was syndicated and the Southeastern United States station said, well, if she keeps having Arthur Duncan on, who was the black tap dancer, we're not going to do it. So she actually gave him more airtime, and then NBC canceled her and the biggest thing is she was the producer of her show. She wasn't just the star. She was the producer. Right. And back there being a single woman in her 30s in the 1950s, like that was a huge, massive accomplishment. Yep. And she says she could have just gone because she never hit that pinnacle again after she basically flipped the bird and goes, "You're being racist assholes, kiss my ass."
Yeah.
I love that woman, but she still accomplished amazing things. And she was all for like huge with animals, and she did great charity things, and she was hilarious. And we lost her way too soon. Like she should have lived, her and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That's probably the other one. And I'm a Canadian one, but those are two absolute kick-ass women that I don't know if I could end the conversation with either of them.
Yes, I am 100% with you for so many different reasons, especially because, I think Ryan Reynolds kind of said it the best when we all found out she passed away a few days ago, because what he said was, you made it to this great age. I forget what his exact quote was, but like you ended up being old, and yet we still don't think we had enough time with you. And there's like this magic in that. And it's so true, because everyone I've talked to since she passed has said, she only had, 17 days, and we could have said she made it to 100. And I said, screw that. She lived more than 100 lifetimes in all of the things that she did and all of the change that she made. And she
did good things. She just didn't get to an old age. She was a positive shit disturber.
Yes, 100%. And she did everything with so much love. It didn't matter what it was, that variety show that she had, it was all about love and emphasizing other people than herself, and just, oh God, yes.
And doing the right thing, even when it cost her.
Yes.
Like, I always thought it was amazing. And then I heard that, no, she was the producer, which is what allowed her. She wasn't just the star. She was the producer. That's right. And she lost that, and she never got up to that pinnacle again, but she wasn't. And she knew the risk she was taking, but she goes, no, this is right. What you are doing, what you were asking me to do is wrong on every freaking level. When we have more and more people that aren't just doing it, but are getting known for doing it, this is what's going to change. And as a pasty white woman, it's our job to be doing this. It's not the Black people or the Latinos or the ones that are being held down. It's us that needs to stand up with them and for them and say, no, this isn't right. We're not doing this anymore. It ends, and it ends here. Yes. And Betty White is one that did that. And she was doing that for over 70 years. She was fucking amazing.
Agreed. Yes, 100% agreed. I adore her on so many levels. So she is absolutely one of the people that's on my list. And I'm like you. I have a list of probably like hundreds of people that I would pick.
Yeah, exactly. How do you want me to pick one? Spin the wheel. Okay, I win.
And that's the thing, right? Especially because I think for me personally, depending on what I'm dealing with in my personal life, it changes, right? In this moment, given the fact that we just lost Betty White, she's top of mind.
Yep.
But when RBG died, it was RBG, right? And, at different times in my life, it's been people like Oprah or Angelina Jolie or like all of these people.
Yeah, and they're all wonderful. Like I said, they're all on you spin the wheel. I get to talk with one of you. It's a win.
Exactly. So I love this. You and I are so much on the same wavelength. I love it. Okay. The last question, since we're running out of time, is what does happiness mean to you?
That's another loaded question. I love the questions. You're asking really, really big ones, but I have to narrow this down. Happiness for me is being able to do stuff that lights me up and having some control over my life. I hated being an employee. So when I was fired from my job, which is what got me into business, because I would not have had the courage, to be completely honest, to do it on my own. I was already looking for another job, interviewing, all this stuff. I would have been gone in a week. Sure. But when he fired me, it set me free, and I'm going, I don't have to do this anymore. And that is exactly the kick that I needed, because it would have taken me years longer to do it on my own. And even when I was going through especially the first 2 years of my business, which were really, really hard and financially painful, because I went from $55,000 a year on a steady paycheck. I know when I'm getting paid, right, to maybe making $24,000 in my first 2 years. And that's not $1,000 a month. It's $3,000 one month and $200 the next month, and all over the place until I got to the point where, okay, it's coming in and all of that. But I was happy right off the bat because I was doing what I wanted to do. I was creating something, and I didn't go in to just be like everybody else. That's one of the reasons why it took me longer to get, well, not longer, but it took me that 2 years to get going, because I'm not just building something like everybody else. I know what I'm working on. Right. And when I'm able to see the light bulbs go on with my clients when they're getting it, and when I see that the positive changes and the growth that they're seeing in their bit, that lights me up. That makes me happy. That's going, this is why I do what I do, because this wonderful person who has a great idea is now able to start supporting their family and doing this stuff. And if I was able to help with that, yay.
I love that answer. And I love asking a question. I know you said, they're great questions. I love asking that question specifically because I think we can, as human beings, just learn from what lights other people up. And we can start to incorporate things that might light us up that we never thought about, right? So there might be somebody listening to this podcast right now who thinks, oh, I've never even thought to start my own business. Maybe that's something I should think about, simply because it's something we're talking about. And I so love it when people are willing to answer the questions. So thank you so much for that.
We've had a wonderful conversation. We have to end this. Your listeners are going to go, these women won't shut up.
It's so true. And they're used to it because occasionally I do go way over in time. So they know me pretty well, 6 years in, they know me pretty well at this point. But yes, we do need to end because our time is up, but I am happy to have you back anytime. You have been amazing.
I would love it. You're going to have to come up with some new, well, in fact, you could probably ask the same questions, and because I'll be in a different headspace, you'll get slightly different answers.
Exactly. I love it. Tammy, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been my pleasure to speak with you this afternoon. You are absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you. This was a blast. I've been meeting and talking with so many amazing people doing podcasts. I love it. I haven't had a bad conversation yet. Because there's people doing amazing things. And like I said, that's what we need to focus on. Yes. That's our hope for everything. Everything. Encouraging good people doing good things to keep at it.
Yes, 100%. Yes. And for those of you who are listening, again, I will post in the show notes all of the ways you can get in touch with Tammy, all of the things. I will post a link to her new podcast because by the time you hear this, it should be out. And I will absolutely have Tammy back because I know you guys have loved her just as much as I have. So thank you so much for tuning in this week and listening to another fantastic conversation. I am blessed that you come back every week and you listen to me have these conversations with people because they really are the highlight of my week. And I'm so blessed to share it with you all. So thank you for listening. Have a wonderful week, and we will chat with you next week. Bye for now.